Hello, I'm Jake Trotter, OU beat writer with the Oklahoman, and I'm joined today by college football analyst Phil Steele, who puts out a tremendous college football preview magazine every year and also produces a lot of college football content throughout the season on his website, philsteele.com. Phil, thanks for joining me today. You had Oklahoma number 1 last year. You have them number 2 this year. Is that more of a case of Alabama, who you have number 1, being the team to beat this season, or do you think Oklahoma maybe stepped down from last year?
Oh, no, I think Oklahoma clearly is probably even a step up from last year with their 16 returning starters. They're one of only 4 teams in the country that rank in my top units in all 8 of the position categories in the front of the magazine. You know, they've got a veteran quarterback in Landry Jones, best set of receivers in the country, an improved offensive line. And the defense, last year they did give up some garbage yards, which is part of the reason they allowed 362 yards per game. But the defense was not dominating at times. This year they've got the potential to be there, as they've got my number 19 set of defensive linemen, number 2 linebackers, number 3 DBs. And they're a complete team. They have my number 11 rated special teams. When I lined it up this year, I said, well, the 2 best teams, both undefeated, both in the national championship game, Oklahoma, Alabama. Who are you going to take, Phil? And I ended up going with the SEC team with the best defense in the country. And by the time the game would roll around, the national title game, Alabama's young quarterback left plenty of experience, including an SEC title game victory. And keep in mind, the last time Alabama won the national championship, 2009, they had an inexperienced quarterback. They had to replace their top running back. So basically, it was just me playing out the national title game and opting to go with the SEC team to win the title.
Yeah, Alabama has an inexperienced quarterback, as you mentioned. With Oklahoma, you have Landry Jones, who's going into his 3rd season as a starter. He had a fantastic finish to last year, and it was a big part of OU's 5-game winning streak to close out the season. Now, what's interesting is you have Landry Jones as a first-team All-American over Andrew Luck. I would venture to guess you're the only one who's going to have that those 2 guys in that order. Why did you put Landry over a guy that most people think will be the number 1 pick in the draft next year?
Well, and as you can tell when you flip down on the All-American page where I rank the quarterbacks, I've got Luck listed number 1 because it's a no-brainer. This guy's going to be the first pick in next year's draft, and he would have been the first pick in this year's NFL draft. But if you flip back to the projection page in the back of the magazine, it projects out, I play the teams against the schedule and project out the yards for each team. I've got Stanford throwing for 280 yards per game. I've got Oklahoma throwing for 370 yards per game. That's an extra 90 yards per game pass offense for Oklahoma, which means Landry Jones is going to have over 1,000 yards more passing than Andrew Luck this year. I think he's got better receivers to throw to for starters. I just think when you look at the 2 quarterbacks statistically at the end of the year, there'll be that big of a difference between Landry Jones' stats and Andrew Luck's stats. Ignore the fact that Luck's going to get picked first in the NFL. I think Landry Jones will have the better year statistically and deserve that honor.
Does he have a real shot to win? I guess he would be the 3rd quarterback to win a Heisman under Stoops. Does he have a legitimate chance to be that guy?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the Heisman Trophy is not necessarily an individual award. It's sort of you have to have a team that's up there among the top teams in the country, most likely unbeaten, because Heisman voters, once a guy's team loses a game, say, well, he couldn't get him to win that particular game. I think Andrew Luck drops out of it somewhat early because I do forecast Stanford to get a couple of losses this year. My top 2 players for the Heisman Trophy this year, you're looking at Landry Jones of Oklahoma, who I think will have an undefeated Oklahoma team and put up tremendous stats, and then Trent Richardson, Alabama. Remember 2 years ago, Mark Ingram replaced a rusher who had rushed for 1,350 yards and 5.9 yards per carry. All Ingram did was take home the Heisman Trophy because Alabama is a running back-oriented offense. Trent Richardson's going to get the bulk of the carries there. With both teams being unbeaten, I know how Heisman voters work. Those are the 2 guys they'll be looking at will be Landry Jones and Trent Richardson.
Let's broaden out to the Big 12 a little bit. You obviously have OU winning the league. One team that you're down on again this year, and I think you wrote in your magazine you expected to be on a lot of talk shows in the state of Oklahoma, is Oklahoma State after their 11-win season last year. I believe you picked them to finish 6th in the South last year. You weren't alone. There were a lot of people that weren't high on OSU. But this year you have them 19th in the country and tied for 3rd in the Big 12 with Texas. What is your reasoning behind picking the Cowboys that low?
Yeah, a couple of folks have said, Phil, I mean, you had Oklahoma State ridiculously low last year. Do you realize there wasn't a single magazine, publication, internet site that had Oklahoma State ranked last year? So, I mean, it looked like a rebuilding year for Oklahoma State. I wasn't the only one calling for a down year. As I mentioned, nobody had them even ranked last season. But this year, when I look at Oklahoma State, I've got a couple of question marks. The first one is at the running back spot. Kendall Hunter was a complete back. Now, they've got some good backs, and Joseph Randall, Jeremy Smith. They each have their individual fortes, but neither of them strikes me as the complete back. So I'm wondering how they're going to replace the running back position. Also, Dana Holgerson is gone. This guy's been a magician in the offense coordinator position at both Houston and Oklahoma State. We'll see how they fare this year without Holgerson in control. Of course, Gundy's done pretty well, with his offense so far there. And then you look at the defensive front seven this year. They only have 2 starters back in the defensive front seven. Neither the defensive line or linebackers rank in my top unit in the front of the magazine. And then something that I always look at, and you look at Auburn last year for an example, schedule is vital. Auburn really, if you look at them pure talent-wise, at the start of the year and all the close games they won early, they were a team that got better as the season went on. But they had the schedule to go unbeaten last year. All the tough games were at home, and you looked at their road slate and you said that's all winnable. In fact, in the magazine, I wrote Auburn had a great shot at being 11-0 when they played Alabama at the end of the season. Well, Oklahoma State, if you look at the Big 12 schedule, my top teams in the Big 12, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma State, Missouri, and Texas Tech. Those are the top 6 teams in the power poll. Oklahoma State plays one of them at home, Oklahoma, a team that beat them at home last year. On the road, they have to play Texas, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Texas Tech. It is by far the toughest schedule of any Big 12 team. They're going to have to win 4 road games against teams that are in their level talent-wise. So they've got the exact opposite schedule of what they had last year. I do think their offense is explosive. I rate it number 2 in the country. My question marks this year, defense and schedule, and that's why I've got them down there at number 19.
You mentioned the OU-Texas game. You can kind of throw out the record sometimes in that one. I mean, even last year with the way Texas struggled, they gave OU all it wanted in the Cotton Bowl. The Sooners held on 28-20 and needed a muffed punt return at the end of that game to seal it. Can Texas bounce back this year?
Absolutely. And last year, they had the interception problem. I mean, their starting quarterback, Eric Gilbert, had a 10-17 interceptions. I think he still holds on to the job, wins it this year, and he'll be vastly improved. And they've got a great supporting cast. But to me, the biggest difference in Texas this year, as opposed to Texas in the last 5 years, is going to come at that running back position. I have not seen a running back emerge as a feature back at Texas. Well, they got one this year, and Malcolm Brown, he's a true freshman. A lot of folks say, Phil, how can you project a true freshman to be so high on your list? Look at Marcus Lattimore, South Carolina last year. True freshman, steps in. South Carolina hadn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2001. Marcus Lattimore was arguably one of the best running backs in the country last year as a true frosh. I think Malcolm Brown will have the same impact. And if they have a running back they can feed the ball to, the rest of the offense all of a sudden gets a lot better, including their quarterback. Now, defensively, there wasn't a lot wrong with Texas. They only gave up 300 yards per game last year. If the offense is better, that defense, I've got them rated the number 2 defense in the country. So this is a dangerous Texas team. 12 returning starters. If Malcolm Brown lives up to my potential, I think they get much better quarterback play. Don't discount the fact that this is a Texas team that was 25-2 the previous 2 years. I think they're going to more resemble the 25-2 team than last year's 5-7 squad.
Nationally, looking at the national championship picture, you have Oklahoma, you have Alabama. Who are some other teams that could make a run at that title game?
Well, if everybody slips up, there's that Boise State team waiting out there, and if Boise State can get past Georgia in the opener, which is not going to be easy. It's in Atlanta. It's going to be a hostile crowd. Georgia's loaded this year. But I think Boise State's got the opportunity. They've got a veteran senior quarterback in Kellen Moore, led the NCAA in pass efficiency. The schedule, a little bit tougher than last year, but still not that tough. But I think when you look at Boise State with 14 returning starters, they're a team capable of playing in the national title game if all the big boys lose one. You have to look at Oregon. When Oregon is going to be explosive offensively, they've got the best running backs in the country, LaMichael James, Kenyon Barner, and company. They've got a veteran quarterback now in Darren Thomas. And, defensively, they only have 5 starters back, but I think the offense is probably explosive enough to get them possibly back to the title game. And one other team I'll throw out that nobody's talking about. They're down there. To my mind, they're this year's Auburn team, because if you look at them talent-wise, they're probably about the 15th best team in the country. But they're a team very capable of running the table, and that's Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's got Logan Thomas. And when I talked to Coach Beamer in the Maxwell Awards, his face just lit up talking about Thomas. 6'6", 245, mobile, strong arm. This guy is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NCAA as a first-time starter. They've got a veteran offense around him with my number 37 set of running backs, number 20 receivers, number 30 offensive line, and last year's defense. I mean, keep in mind, their defensive coordinator has had, Bud Foster, tremendous defenses. They were number 4 in the country in 07, number 7 in the country in 08, number 12 in 09. Last year, number 52. Now, that's not going to happen again. They're going to have their usual great defense, and then you look at their road schedule. They'll be favored in all their road games, and there's really no tremendous tough game on the schedule. Clemson, Miami of Florida, North Carolina, their toughest 3 games. None of those teams in the top 10. They get them all at home. They really have the talent and the schedule to run the table this year and be this year's Auburn.
Well, great stuff, Phil. I really appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can pick up a copy of your magazine or even order it online if they could.
Well, I appreciate that, Jake. The magazine hits the newsstands today. It's across the country and should be at all the fine newsstands out there. But you can also go online to philsteele.com. That's STEELE.com. Loaded with information. In fact, I put all my information for the football season up on the line, so when I'm at home working, I can just click on there. Check out the team pages. Check out the daily blog. Lots of great stuff. It's Phil Steele, STEELE.com.
Well, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. This is Jake Trotter from the Oklahoman. You're listening to NewsOK.com.